Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I got for y'all my pound for pound rankings. It's July now. That means the first 6 months of 2024 has just concluded, so I thought what better time to update my pound for pound rankings than now. The last time I put up content regarding my pound for pound list was at the end of 2023, and the list went as follows: Inoue at number 1, Crawford at 2, Usyk at 3, then it was Bivol at 4, then it was Canelo at 5, Devin Haney at 6, Teofimo Lopez at 7, Bam was ranked number 8, Beterbiev at 9, and Tank made the cut at number 10. Now, admittedly, I feel like I slept on a couple fighters and maybe overrated a couple as well. At the time, I struggled on whether I factor in my actual opinions on the results of fights, or do I just go with the official results? For that list, I ultimately went with just going with the official results for the most part. But for my list today, I'm changing that. I'm gonna factor in my actual opinion. Now, this might trigger a lot of people, and I don't mean to sound rude, but you're on my channel watching my video about my pound for pound list. Now I'm expecting a ton of backlash because that's just how these lists usually goes. Not everyone will agree, so I encourage you all to please make your own list and share it with the rest of us in the comments down below. I'm genuinely interested in your list, and I'm genuinely interested in your opinions, and so please do that and share it with us down below. We can get a conversation going. But enough with the chitter chatter. Let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. I just want to explain something real quick. Just like in all of my lists, I will be utilizing a tier system in these lists. I do this to kind of show you guys that, even though fighter A might be ranked 2 spots higher than fighter B, these two guys are relatively on the same level and are generally interchangeable. They're only separated by the slightest margin. So, for example, if fighter A was ranked number 6 and fighter B was ranked number 9, but they're both in tier 4, that would mean, in my opinion, fighter A's absolute ceiling for the list is 6. He can't go any higher than that. And his floor is 9. He can't be any lower than that. And vice versa with fighter B. He has the same floor and ceiling as fighter A. Hopefully that makes sense, but if it doesn't, I'll elaborate a little further into the video and you'll see exactly what I mean. But with that out of the way, I'm actually going to start with my pound for pound king right now, just because I feel as though there shouldn't really be any surprise on who the top dog is right now, and it's obviously Alexander Usyk. It's 100% Usyk. He is in tier 1, and there's nobody else in that tier. He is by himself in that tier. He is alone in tier 1. Usyk's resume, achievements, and performances are stuff of legends. He's undoubtedly an all-time great, and in my humble opinion, the greatest of his era. Beating Fury, quite literally the biggest and the most skilled at his weight class, skyrocketed him to the pound for pound king status. When you beat the man in the division, when he weighed in roughly 40 pounds heavier than you, that says a lot. And then you beat him the way you did, how you took the fight to him, and you had him hurt, damn near almost knocked him out. I mean, come on. On top of that, you beat the other great of the division twice in Anthony Joshua. Come on, guys. Usyk is now a 2-time undisputed champ at cruiserweight and heavyweight, cleaned out both divisions, and fought some proper names en route to his achievements. I mean, it's Usyk, guys. Usyk is king. Now on to tier 2, and I have 2 people in this tier battling it out for second place, and they are none other than Naoya Inoue and Terence Crawford. And this one was pretty easy for me to decide on who gets the second spot, and it's the man I had as pound for pound king to end 2023, Naoya Inoue. Listen guys, I know Bud is him. I know he's a bad man. I know he's accomplished just as much as Inoue, and he beat Errol, dominated him. But since that fight with Spence, Inoue has also become a 2-time undisputed champ. And literally 4 days before Bud fought Errol, Inoue went up a new weight class, fought the best in Stephen Fulton, dominated him in a fight many deemed as a 50-50 fight, took his 2 belts. He then fought the next best and dominated him to end the year, took both of his belts and became undisputed for the second time. He became 2-time undisputed champ in 2 different weight classes in a year. He then fights a top 5 contender. Gets caught in the first round. He gets dropped, yes. Then he proceeded to pick him apart and absolutely destroy him. Inoue is in his 4th weight class. He's a 2-time undisputed champ, undefeated, and 22 out of his 27 career fights were for titles. You know what that means? That means he only really had 5 easier fights. After that, he went on and fought the best after the best after the best. 95% of prospects today need that first 20 fights to build themselves until they get a title shot. Not Inoue, he needed 5. So while Bud is great in his own right, he quite possibly may be the best fighter as of right now. He has been inactive and he hasn't achieved what Inoue has in a shorter time span. But, you know, if Bud beats Madrimov next month, he probably will be number 2 on my list. But for right now, I got Inoue at 2 and Bud at 3. Moving on to tier 3, I have 4 names here fighting for the 4th spot. And they are Canelo Alvarez, Dimitri Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, and Jesse Bam Rodriguez. So all 4 of these guys have an argument to be number 4. Canelo, he of course is undisputed, once reigned as the pound for pound king. In his most recent outing, he beat a very good fighter in Jaime Munguia, and I personally think that win will age well for Canelo. Dimitri Bivol, of course, we all know he beat Canelo in 2022 when he was the pound for pound king. He dethroned him. He then went to beat Gilberto Zurdo, who was, I believe, the top 5 in the division at the time. Artur Beterbiev, one of the scariest fighters today. 20 fights, 20 wins, 20 knockouts. He holds 3 belts and recently made light work of Callum Smith, and prior to that beat a very tough Anthony Yarde. Even further back, he momentarily retired Vosdick, who was a top 2 or 3 of the division at the time. Bam, well, guys, he just beat a legend a few nights ago, completely outclassed him, and then he knocked him out to the body for a conclusive victory. Of the 4 kings in the previous era, he now has 3 of them in his resume. He's Randy Orton in his bitch. He's a legend killer, a legend slayer. But to end the year last year, he beat a pound-for-pound talent, in my opinion, in Sonny Edwards. I'm extremely high on Sonny Edwards, guys, who himself just had himself a nice win as the co-main to Bam and Estrada. I think the win over Sonny will age incredibly well for Bam, because I do think Sonny will accomplish quite a bit in his career. But that sort of wraps up the little summary for each of the fighters there. And for this, I'll actually start with number 7 first. And I know this is going to be extremely controversial. And trust me, I'm not trying to be. It's just how I genuinely see things. But ranked at 7, I have Canelo Alvarez, guys. There goes the dislike button. But y'all hear me out. Since Caleb Plant, since 2021, Canelo hasn't had any really impressive wins. 2022, he lost to Bivol. Then he beat a 107-year-old Golovkin. He then fought and beat Ryder in 2023, where he decisively won, but had a couple of shaky moments. Then he pulled Charlo up 2 weight classes to fight him. That fight did absolutely nothing for his legacy, in my opinion. In my opinion, the only noteworthy victory of his in recent times is his win over Munguia. That was a great win against a young buck who had the perfect style for him to beat. So even that, I don't really know. Y'all will say I'm hating and this and that and a third, but if you really break it down how I did, well, in July 2024, I think there are 6 people above him in the pound for pound rankings. Moving on, this might be controversial as well, but the 6th spot goes to Dimitri Bivol. Why is Bivol so low? Well, after his huge upset win over Canelo Alvarez in 2022, he fought the undefeated Zurdo. He beat him too, but he was inactive until the end of 2023 to no fault of his own. So since Zurdo, he's fought 2 C+ to B- level fighters at best. It's no disrespect to Lyndon Arthur and Zinad, but it is what it is. I just wish he built on his success in 2022. He could have been a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter by now, but the die rolled the way it did. And on July 2024, I currently have him at number 6 on my list. Number 5 on my list is Artur Beterbiev. This wrecking machine, this monster, is undefeated, and every fight of his ends in a knockout. Hard-hitting, technical brute is what he is. He beat Vosdick some time back, but he continued to build on that spectacular victory by beating proper contenders. I'm talking Marcus Brown, Anthony Yard, Callum Smith, and in due time, Dimitri Bivol. To be honest, that's probably the deciding factor as to why I have better BF over Bivol. I think head-to-head, he beats Bivol. And the fact that he holds 3 belts to Bivol's 1 also holds a little bit of weight. And that leaves the young lion, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, at number 4, which is 100% I know is going to shock a lot of you guys, and I know a lot of you guys are not going to agree. But to me, he's just outside the top 3. And I know it's a bold take, but hey, man, his win over Estrada was huge to me. It was huge. It was humongous. Estrada is a legend, guys, and he stopped him. He's the first and only person to stop that really, really tough Estrada, man. Unbelievable. But not only does he have Estrada, he also has Quadras and Rung Visai in his leisure. Those 3 names right there is heavy. Them names hold weight. Yes, they were past their best, but they were still relatively them when they fought Bam. They weren't completely washed at all. And his second best win, in my opinion, was against Sonny Edwards. The way he beat him, his win over Sonny, in my opinion, is the best win out of these 4 men since Bivol beat Canelo. That fight had 2 prime top-level fighters going at it at their peak. Man, Bam is special. He's going to crack top 3 soon enough. He might even crack top 3 by the end of the year. After he leveled Estrada, he was saying he wants to fight the winner of Martinez and Ioka. And I need that Ioka fight, man. And then after, he's going to go against Tanaka because he said he wants to be undisputed. Oh my world. If Bam gets Ioka and Tanaka in his resume, I think there might be a case for him to be pound for pound king. This might happen next year, guys. This guy is incredible. Bam is only 24, and he is at number 4 in my pound for pound rankings. A lot of y'all probably already real unhappy with the list right now. But remember what I said about all these guys being in the same tier? All these guys are interchangeable. They all have arguments to be number 4, and I can't stress this enough. Though they might be several spots separated, they're only really separated by the finest of margins. I'm splitting hairs to rank these guys because it's that close. It's really that close. But moving on to tier 4, I have 2 names going at it for the 8th spot, and they are Gervonta Tank Davis and Vasily Lomachenko. These 2 contrast because Loma has the achievements, he has the resume, and he's still really, really damn good. But what Tank lacks in substance in his resume, he makes up for with his performances. All of this is relative. When I say Tank lacks substance in his resume, I say that in comparison to someone like Loma, which I think is a fair critique. Frank Martin was probably a top 3 win in Tank's career, which says a lot about Tank's resume, no? But I will say some of Tank's win, like the Ryan Garcia win and Pitbull win, has aged pretty well, especially the Pitbull win. I think this Frank Martin win will also age well. So I do think the narrative on Tank's quote-unquote weak resume is slowly getting better, but nevertheless, at this point in time, his resume still pales in comparison to Loma's. And this is where my point about how my opinion on results will trump the official results of a fight. Because in my opinion, Lomachenko beat Haney. He was much older than Haney and he was much smaller than Haney, but he beat him. It's like Estrada beating Bam. That's how I feel about that situation. Then in his most recent fight, he knocked out Kambosos, something Tio couldn't do, something Haney couldn't do. Having said that, I do have Tank at number 8 and Loma at 9, because if they do match up, I have to favor Tank. I just have to. Tank is peaking right now, and I think he beats a 36-year-old Loma in a very competitive fight. Again, separated by the slightest margin. Now, we only have 1 spot left. I have 5 names here in tier 5, all worthy for the 10th spot from my pound for pound list, and they are Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, David Benavidez, and Junto Nakatani. All 5 has a case to be number 10 on my list, and I'm going to start with Benavidez. Now, Benavidez is undefeated, and he was a super middleweight world champion before, even twice. He's done it twice. He's been on a tear lately, beating Caleb Plant, features Andrade, most recently against Alexander Vosdick in his debut at light heavyweight. The argument against him is not having a marquee win on his resume. Now, Shakur Stevenson is currently undefeated, and he is a current lightweight champion. He is also a 3-division world champion. Most definitely a top 10 pound-for-pound talent. But in my opinion, his greatest victory as of right now is his win over Oscar Valdez, which isn't the best, we'll just say. Junto Nakatani is the dark horse out of the bunch, but he's undefeated, and he's also a 3-division world champ, and is a current bantamweight champion. He was the holder for the Rings KO of the Year in 2023 when he did Andrew Maloney absolutely filthy. Since then, he went up another weight class and dominated and knocked out the respectable Alexandro Santiago, who just recently beat and probably retired the legendary Nonito Donaire. Junto also passes the eye test with flying colors. He will be a household name in these lists for a very, very long time. The argument against him is the same as Kerr and Benavidez. Not a standout victory in his resume. Devin Haney. Devin is a tricky one because officially he's undefeated. He took Kambosos to school twice and was undisputed at lightweight. He also defended his titles against Lomachenko before going up in weight and putting on a clinic against a top 3 junior welterweight at the time in Regis Prograis. He then cherry picks, and yes, I said cherry picked Ryan Garcia. But instead, he got put on his bum 3 times by the huge underdog. Yes, Ryan was 3 pounds over, but he agreed to fight him without knowledge because he and everyone else, myself included, thought that Ryan was easy work for Devin. The thought was Ryan was easy money for Devin. The skill gap was far too large for Ryan's athleticism to cover, but he and everyone else, including myself, was wrong, guys. He got humiliated in that fight, and he was beat. But Ryan popped for PEDs. So now the fight has a huge asterisk on it, an even larger one than before. And to be frank, I don't really know what to think of Devin now. But I do know one thing. I didn't think he beat Loma. And Loma was his marquee win. He was launched into the pound-for-pound rankings with that victory, that quote-unquote victory. But I thought he decisively lost a competitive fight against the older, smaller man. So that's my thoughts on Haney. I may have sounded like a hater there, but trust me, guys, I have nothing against Devin Haney. I love how he challenges himself, and I love how he is for the smoke. And y'all, that Ryan fight really showed who Devin is, man. He is a soldier. He got put down 3 times, but got up and pressed on 3 times. There is no quit in this man, and he has tremendous heart. He is to be respected, especially because Ryan was busted for PEDs, deliberate or not. So it's no hate over here. I just simply don't think he beat Loma. That's it. It's just that simple. No hidden agenda. No biases, no hate. I just saw Loma beat him. That's it. Now, Teofimo is an interesting case as well. Teo beat a prime Lomachenko when he was on the hot streak, beating top champs and top contenders left and right, collecting belts from left and right. And Teo put an end to that. The greatest win out of the bunch for sure. But then he follows that incredible performance by getting dropped and beat by a humongous underdog in George Kambosos Jr. He loses all his titles and he moves up in weight and has another controversial win over Sandor Martin where he got dropped again, maybe even twice. But then he follows that up with a spectacular win over the consensus #1 guy in the division, the former undisputed junior welterweight champion Josh Taylor. This win is the second greatest win of the bunch in my opinion. That means out of all these guys, Teo has the top 2 wins, bar none. But then he goes ahead and has another controversial win over Jermaine Ortiz, who I actually believed was robbed. I thought Ortiz beat Lopez. I really did. Most of y'all would probably disagree with me, but no matter how Ortiz fought, in my eyes, I saw him win more rounds than Lopez that night. And just a few nights ago, Lopez goes and fights an unknown warrior in Steve Claggett, who actually did himself proud. It was a good fight, but Claggett was put there to get knocked out, for Teo to look good. Instead, Claggett lands shots after shots on Teo, even hitting the triple-digit mark on landed hits on Teo, and goes the distance. He was dominated, but he most definitely did well, considering he was outclassed. So, yeah, that's my little rundown on Teo's roller coaster of a career. So who takes the 10th spot? This was so difficult for me, guys. I didn't know how to decide and who to go with, and I've gone back and forth on who takes the last spot on the list. But as I talk about it right now, I think it's only right to go with Shakur Stevenson. Shakur, though he doesn't have the strongest resume of the bunch, we can't overlook the fact that he is a 3-division world champ. He was the one to take Valdez's O, and he even has Jermell Herring on his resume, as well as Robson Consecao. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's a good fighter, man. He drew with Navarrete in his last fight. Yes, he had a really bad performance against Edwin De Los Santos, but let's be honest. You can clearly tell his dominant hand wasn't at 100% that night. And I want to make it clear that Shakur Stevenson hasn't had any controversial fights. He's won every fight handily, guys. No knockdowns, no blemish, no nothing on his record but wins. But what really solidifies his spot for me is the fact that he's the best fighter of the bunch. He's the best defensive fighter, maybe in the whole scene. In all honesty, he's without a doubt a top 10 pound for pound talent. So I think that warrants a spot on my pound for pound list. Now again, I will say it for the upteenth time now. Most of these fighters is separated only by the slightest of margins. Most of the names on this list is interchangeable, guys. There is no agenda here. I'm not trying to build a narrative. It's no hate here. I'm a boxing fan who loves great fights. And just as you see a fighter or a fight as one way, I might see it as another. But that's it for me, guys. I want to hear from you. Comment down below on what you think of my list, and please share your list with me and everybody else here. The pound for pound list is a very subjective list, and that's what makes it fun. This was a really long video. So if you made it to the end, I really want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you leave a like and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Thank you.